Feeling cooked? Struggling to hit your numbers and don't know why? Let's talk about deloading and how it can be the key to your next breakthrough. If you've ever felt like your lifts are off and you're just not recovering like you should, that's when the question of deloading might pop into your mind. So let's go through why it's important, how we do it, and who should do it. A deload is a plan to break from the usual training routine. It's not slacking off, it's just training smart, as progress isn't just made in the gym, it's also made during your recovery. When you've been training, you've probably felt fatigue during the session. And once you've gotten out of the gym, you've gone home, you've had a good meal, and you've been able to rest and have some good night's sleep, the next day you might still feel sore, but you start feeling better. And as the days progress, that fatigue leaves and you're able to get back into the gym. But a lot of that fatigue when you're training hard and consistently, it can dip during the days of rest and recovery, but it does slowly build up over time. And as the fatigue builds up, your performance will go down. That's where a deload week comes in handy. It helps clear out all this fatigue so you can start progressing again. Deload weeks help you hit the reset button. It's taking a step back on purpose so you can keep moving forward in the long run. By reducing that accumulated fatigue, you come back stronger, faster, and with better energy, so you can really get back into your training and hammer it out. Now let's talk about how to deload. It's simple, but you need to do it right. A common method for deloading is dropping your reps and sets about 30 to 50%, most commonly it being 50%. What that can look like, say you're doing 3 sets of 12, that can go down to, we can do 2 sets, about 6 to 8 reps on those 2 sets. Reducing your sets and reps is the most common way, but another layer that you can add to your deload can also be reducing your intensity. And with reducing intensity, say we're talking about in the scheme of RAR meaning reps in reserve. Say that for most exercises, you're aiming for being in an RAR of 1 to 2. What you can do instead is aim for 4 to 5. This just helps lower the amount of intensity and fatigue that you build up on your body. An absolute big plus to doing a deload week, besides getting rid of all that accumulated fatigue, is that you get to actually work on your technique and form in a more controlled way. Obviously, when you're pushing yourself week to week, you still have to hone in on that form and technique, and you will improve on that. But everyone knows that when you get to those shaky reps, it's hard to stay 100% true to that technique. So by doing a deload week, you can really nail down any inconsistencies that you have with any of your form. That can be especially great for anyone who's trying to do a specific sport like powerlifting or Olympic lifting, where they really want to try and work on something that's holding them back. So when should you deload? There are a few different ways that you can approach this. Some people, they like to go every 4 weeks, they plan it into their program, so no matter what, on that 4th week, they do a deload. I personally like to go with this, as I found that it usually is around the 4-week mark that I start seeing that drop off in energy. Another way you can play it is just by how you feel. You can go through your usual workout weeks, smashing them out, and as soon as you start feeling your performance and you see a gradual decline in your energy, that's when you can start your deload. The span of a deload most commonly is about a week, but some people, depending on their training style, might only do it for half a week. A few things to note and consider about deloading, to think about if you are right for it, is first of all, what's your training experience? What I mean by that is that if you're a beginner, it's probably not necessary to schedule in a deload. Most beginners, they're not at a level where they lift enough weight or push themselves close enough to the point that they have a lot of fatigue getting accumulated. And then that's when we can look at experienced lifters, because the same thing can be said, but obviously flipped. Experienced lifters, they've gotten to the point where they can understand where their training to failure is, and they also are lifting a bit more weight as well, which is putting a lot more strain on their bodies. If you're also not consistent with your training, or you just go to move weight around, you're not really pushing yourself, a deload probably isn't what you need. If you've got a health tracker as well, that can also help a lot with telling when you need a deload. I've currently been wearing my Whoop for about 3 years, and it's pretty easy to see when I start needing a deload, as a lot of my recovery starts hitting yellow. So if your lifts are feeling off and you're losing a little bit of that discipline with the gym, maybe your sleep is not what it used to be, have a look at your program, see if it's time for you to schedule in a deload. Recovery is as important as your training, so don't slack on it, think about it, and use it to your advantage.